This is Byron Fitch, and you're looking at my physics final project. I created a bubble maker. The components of the bubble maker are the Arduino, the breadboard. There is a single push button. There is a motor with a fan blade that I made, and then the servo with a bubble wand. And last but not least, a little bowl that has some bubble soap in it. How it works is you press the push button, the servo dips the wand in the bubbles, the fan turns on, which then blows the bubbles. So let's watch it work. As you can see, I have completely torn apart my bubble machine. I'm now going to try and give you a better idea of what I used in making the bubble machine. So first, let me tell you the parts that came directly from our Arduino kit. So obviously you have the breadboard and the Arduino, and there's the DC motor. In the DC motor you needed a transistor and a 2.2 kilo ohm resistor. For the push button you needed a 10 kilo ohm resistor. The servo, just a servo, and you just needed the 3 wires, which I hooked up right there. And then obviously you just need a whole bunch of other wires to hook everything together and make sure everything works. What you have to supply yourself is the bubbles and the bubble wand, and if you can see that at all, I taped a servo arm onto my bubble wand so it could be easily attached to the servo. And this is a little fan blade I molded myself using little pellets that you stick in hot water. They melt down and you can form any shape you want, so I just use those to make a fan blade. And if you noticed in the video, there was actually all of my components were sitting on a board, and this board was actually made out of an old erector set that I had when I was a little kid. So all it is just, there's no real good bracing, so these legs move, you just have to be careful. I made legs out of 2 smaller posts, attached them to this long board. In the video you only see about this much of it because that's all the Arduino takes up. So that keeps it off the ground so the bowl can be below it. And then I made a little box on the end of it so my fan blade could be higher than the bowl so the blade wouldn't end up hitting the bowl. And that is all of the components that you need in order to physically make the bubble machine. What you are now looking at is the complete code needed for the bubble machine. As you can see, it's not very long. There isn't even a scroll bar on the side of it. At the very beginning you have to include the servo commands because that is obviously a major component of the bubble machine. You had to declare your button, and you had to declare where your motor was. Attach your servo. Say your button was an input, your motor is an output. And then your loop is fairly simple. All it says is if the button is pushed, move the servo to 180 degrees, which is the dipping position. Wait a second. Move the servo up to 55 degrees, which is where it rests in front of the fan. Wait a half second, turn the fan on for 2.5 seconds, and turn the fan off. And so, yeah, as you can see, it's not an extremely difficult code, but it took some tweaking to figure it out. There were 3 main problems that I ran into. The first problem dealt with the servo and the bubble wand. It took some calibration in order to get the correct arm position in order so the wand wouldn't knock over the dish and it would then end up in front of the fan. Of the 3 problems, that was probably the easiest one to deal with. The second, and I would say middle difficulty problem, was figuring out the DC motor. We didn't do a lab concerning motors in the class, so I had to do some extra reading and figure all that out on my own. And the third and final problem was the fan blade. It would have been a lot easier if there was a fan blade available to be purchased. Unfortunately, there was not, so I had to make one. And needless to say, it took a good 10-15 attempts before I could find a fan blade that was able to make a bubble. Once that was over, though, I was pretty happy with everything and pretty happy with how it all turned out.